2024 was hands down the toughest year of my life. It challenged me mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, every which way. And there were times where I just did not know if I was going to make it through the year. Ironically, 2024 was also one of the best years of my life, if not the best year of my life. And it gave me the greatest gift I could ever ask for. And that was the gift of breast cancer. Now, that might seem kind of crazy and a little unusual for someone to say, but it's the truth. Breast cancer was the gift I needed, the upgrade I needed, and the blessing I needed. So today I'm going to share my story with you from start to finish. I'm sure there's lots of things I'm going to forget, so of course I'll make other videos down the road as I go on and get doses or bits of inspiration, but I'm gonna just share the bulk of it today and why I say that breast cancer was the greatest gift. So I just want to say a quick hello, welcome. My name is Lauren O'Connell. I'm a 42-year-old mom of 2 teenagers, and I live in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. I'm originally from Milford, Connecticut, USA, but I moved to Dubai with my husband 16 years ago. It's been a while, and when we moved here, I was actually 11 weeks pregnant with my daughter. So I've had both my kids out here. They're born and raised, and we just never moved back to the US because we really enjoy life out here, and I love this warm climate. But we will move back when the kids go to college. It's just not quite yet. They are middle schooler and high schoolers right now. So how do I start this story? Well, it starts right here actually in my office. And in the beginning of December 2023, I was sitting right here at my desk and I was looking at my emails, and I just felt this, I got this thought that came into my mind, and it said to me, do a breast self-exam. So sitting here doing my emails, and I had this thought, and I thought, okay, I was wearing this low cut, just tank top type shirt. My curtains were closed, and so I just started to palpate on the top of my breasts, and instantly on my right breast, I felt a lump. It felt like a walnut in the shell right underneath my skin. And I wasn't concerned, I wasn't worried, and I just thought, oh, that's unusual. It was right at the 12 o'clock mark if you think of your breast as a clock. So I decided to wait 30 minutes and then just try again and see if it was still there. I don't know what I was thinking. To be honest, I was thinking more about the emails in my inbox. And so I waited about 30 minutes, and then I went back and I felt it, and it was still there. So I texted my doctor and I told her, I just found this little hard lump. I'm gonna come in and see you. And she said, yeah, come on in. And I truly didn't think much of it. I didn't think it was anything, but I'm very self-advocating, and I just, wanted to get it checked. So a few days later, maybe it was a week, I don't quite remember, but I went to her office and she could actually barely feel it. And I said to her, no, it is there. I felt it. It's right there. And then she said, okay, well, let me send you right to radiology. And being Dubai, everything is super quick. So I walked right to the radiology department and had an ultrasound on the mass. And the radiologist came in, he took a look at the ultrasound, and he said to me, I'd really like for you to have a biopsy. And still, I wasn't concerned at all. I said, sure, okay. And so I came back a few days later and I had the biopsy, which was way more intense than I thought it would be. I thought it was just gonna be a quick 1-2. I actually didn't even think too much about it because at the time I was really on a hamster wheel. I was grinding and working really hard, being very social and, very present with my kids. And I was quite honestly not paying attention to something I often overlooked, which was myself. So I said, okay, sure, let's do the biopsy. We did the biopsy, and I said to my doctor, if you get the results, just send me a text. I was going on a press trip to Azerbaijan which is a country that's 4 hours north of the United Arab Emirates, and a lot of people like to go there for skiing. And it was actually a press trip for the inauguration of their ski season, which normally I wouldn't go to as a beauty editor. That's not in my typical, press types of press trips I go on. But I was a last minute fill in, and I love to travel. I love to explore and see new countries. I said, sure, I'll go. And before I knew it, I was on the plane and then on a very long car ride to this hotel. And it was on that car ride, I was actually in a bus, and it was a really noisy bus. It was full of influencers from the Middle East and a bunch of journalists as well. And there was a lot of music playing. There was actually strobe lights going off. It was freezing cold. And I received a message from my doctor, and she wrote, "My love." Those were the first 2 words. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, she's going to tell me I have breast cancer. No way. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the video yet, but I was planning on launching my beauty brand in 2024. I've been working so hard behind the scenes on my brand. It's something I've wanted to do since I was a young girl, about 10 years old. It's always been this passion of mine. And it's something that I finally felt I had the courage, the confidence, and I was ready to put something out into the world that was, very unique, very different. And it just had a lot of intention behind it and a lot of my own hard work and love poured into it. And the next 4 words she wrote were, "It is breast cancer." And it was as if everything around me just kind of went dark. And I felt like I was sort of in slow-mo. And I don't even know if I could see. Like, everything just went black around me. And I had so many, it was almost as if when water starts to boil, I just had so many little bubbles popping up, just little thoughts, and I couldn't actually think any of them, but I thought all of them at the same time, if that makes sense. I couldn't focus on any one thing. And I don't even know if I was breathing. And I just, in that second, realized that my life has completely changed. Essentially, I ended up doing a U-turn and I came back to Dubai. I did spend a night in Azerbaijan at the hotel, and then I took an early morning flight out. It was awful being by myself. By that point, the news was fresh, obviously, but it was about 30 or 45 minutes in, and I was in the hotel room, and I was feeling angry and sad and confused. I was even feeling a little bit embarrassed. I was feeling devastated and lost. I was feeling like I needed someone, my husband, somebody around me, and I had nobody. And I texted my husband, and he sent me back this beautiful message. And I can't remember exactly the wording of it, but he said, "No matter what happens, I'm here for you, I'm supporting you, I'm with you all the way." And I messaged my parents and told them, and they were completely distraught, as you can imagine. And I got sick. I was all over the place. The next morning, I was picked up early, around 5 a.m. I did not sleep a wink that night, and I began the long journey back to Dubai. So when I came back to Dubai, I started to go through lots of different testing and lots of scans. If you have breast cancer or have just been diagnosed with breast cancer, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I felt like a human pincushion. I felt like I had traded my social life and my work life for hospital visits. And, I had a really packed calendar. I was always doing stuff. I was an on-the-go kind of girl. And suddenly my calendar just got completely cleared out. And instead I was just going to appointment after appointment after appointment. They were trying to figure out if the breast cancer had spread into my lymph nodes. And ironically, I ended up having 2 biopsies. Both biopsies in the sentinel lymph node came back negative. But when I had a PET scan, it came back showing some activity in that area. And I had 2 tumors in my right breast. I was diagnosed with invasive ductal carcinoma, and they initially thought it was stage 1. So they decided that instead of having me start chemo first, because the lymph node was just kind of, it was vague. It was coming back vague. And one of the things I loved about Dubai, and the healthcare I've received here is incredible, is that there was actually a room of, I don't know how many it was like somewhere between 25 and 33 doctors of different disciplines that would come together every Wednesday, and they would actually argue about your case to determine what's the best way forward for you. And apparently my case was quite controversial, because people were on the fence as to whether or not I would need the chemo or I wouldn't, what was going on with my underarm area, the lymph node, if there was going to be another biopsy or what. I was just concerned of, do they have a picture of me up there? And if so, what is the picture? And when I mentioned that to one of the doctors, and he looked at me like I was crazy, he said, what? But I was concerned about that. But anyways, they decided that I would have surgery first. And my oncologist said to me, look, we can do a mastectomy or we can do a lumpectomy. I recommend a lumpectomy because all these longitudinal studies have shown that for exactly the type of breast cancer you have, and I learned at the time that breast cancer is a spectrum. There are so many different types of breast cancers, and there's different stages of breast cancers, there's different locations of breast cancers, and there's lots of different treatments for the various breast cancers. It's not just a one size fits all. It's very, everyone kind of has a little bit of a different story or a different flavor. And so they were going back and forth, and they decided that I would do the surgery, and my doctor recommended the lumpectomy. So I said, sure, I'll do a lumpectomy. So I was scheduled for my first lumpectomy in January. And, at the time I hadn't quite surrendered to the breast cancer yet. And when I say that, what I mean is I was still trying to work. I was still trying to write for the magazine. I was still trying to push forward with my beauty brand and lots of different things. And I wanted the breast cancer to kind of work into my schedule and not be my schedule. And there was just resistance on my part. And that's what I mean by the surrendering. And surrendering is actually a really beautiful thing, because you're giving up control, which is very much ego-based, and you're just sort of giving it up to or trusting in a higher power, which is what I said, what I would say is what I did. And I think of the higher power as, the universe. So I was surrendering it up to the universe. So I had that first surgery, and after the surgery, I was in the recovery room and my eyes were closed. And I heard my breast cancer surgeon, whose name is Dr. Veronica. And actually, I took that as such a positive sign because my daughter is named Veronica. So when they first told me about the breast cancer surgeon and everything was new, I couldn't stop crying. I was devastated. And I found out the doctor's name was Veronica. I was like, ooh, that feels like a really positive sign. And I chose my daughter's name to be Veronica because growing up, there were so many Laurens. In my class, I was always Lauren O, and there was other Laurens, and I love my name. I love the name Lauren, but I wanted my daughter to have a name where she wouldn't have to share it with anyone else. So when I was choosing her name, I made sure it was not in the top 200. And so it's a somewhat of a rare name, so I thought it was great that my doctor was named Veronica. So I was laying there in that recovery room that you go to right after surgery, and I heard her say my name, and I opened my eyes, and she said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I feel really messed up." And she said, "You were in there for an extra 3 hours." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Lauren, there was a complication." And I was laying there, I was completely numb. My brain felt like mush. And I said, "What was the complication?" And she said, "We found cancer in your lymph node." And we ended up taking out 5 nodes or 4 nodes. I can't remember. It was 4 or 5. And I said, oh, and I knew right away that meant I was going to have to go through chemotherapy. Ironically, I am not the first child in my family to go through chemotherapy. I'm one of 3. I'm the oldest, and I have 2 younger brothers. And when my littlest brother was a baby, he had cancer. He had a cancer called neuroblastoma. And he went through chemo and radiation. And I remember, as his big sister, I'm 9 years older than him, I remember him being bald. I remember him being really sickly. I remember one time my mom took me out of school and brought me to the hospital and had me sit with him through a procedure because she couldn't do it. And she was so emotional, so she had me come do it. She pulled me out of school for that. And you know, I remember just always going to visit my brother at the hospital, and being a little kid, I remember asking my mom if my brother was going to die. And so, you know, suddenly I'm thinking, oh my gosh, now I'm going through chemo. How have my parents have had 2 kids that have had cancer and had to go through chemotherapy? This is nuts. And so I was laying there. I knew that was the case, but I said to myself, you know what? I'm taking this one day at a time, and I just got out of the surgery. I'm not going to let my mind wander all over the place. And so we went back to the hospital room. My husband was incredibly nervous because he was expecting me to come out 3 hours early. Apparently he was running back and forth to the nurse's station to find out where his wife was. My best friend had taken my kids for the day, so she brought them to the hospital, and you know, it was tough. It was really tough. And when I woke up, I had a drain, which I really did not like the drain. Out of everything I went through, all the poking, the prodding, the surgeries, everything, the drain drove me nuts. I did not like the drain. But I had a drain, and I had just lots of bandages, couldn't move much. And I spent the next 3 or so weeks just basically at home, laying in bed, recovering. And it turned out that I would need a second surgery because they wanted to, once again, all these doctors arguing with each other, they felt that the margins weren't completely clear on one side of my tissue sample, or my tissue that they pulled out. So there has to be enough of cancer-free tissue for them to call it a clear sample. And mine didn't have that amount that they want to see, that distance. So they came in, they took out more tissue, which ended up being cancer-free. So that was great news. And they told me, you know, we really recommend that you do chemotherapy. Now, if you are new to me, or if you've been on my channel for a while, or if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I'm quite a spiritual person. I really like to meditate, and I'm into manifesting and journaling and, you know, just doing all that deep introspection type things. And a lot of people in the spiritual community are very much against Western medicine. And so a lot of my spiritual friends, or a few of the ones that I told, were like, oh, don't do the chemo. It's going to be not good for you. You know, all this, that, and the next thing. They all have their reasons why. And of course, you know, my non-spiritual friends are saying, oh my gosh, you have to do the chemo and you have to do the radiation, follow the doctor's orders, blah, blah, blah. And so I was hearing, you know, everything from all the different angles, and I knew in my heart, my intuition is strong, it's solid. When I follow it, good things happen. And my intuition said to me, Lauren, you do that chemotherapy, you do that radiation, you listen to your oncologist. So I did. It's getting a little dark, so I'm gonna see if I can just move up the light a little bit. Is that something I can do? No. Okay, we're just gonna continue. So I, you know, decided, of course, I'm gonna do the chemotherapy. And I was recommended to have 16 rounds, and the first 4 rounds were using a type of chemo that is the toughest chemo available to for breast cancer. It's known as the red devil, and it's called that because it's a red color, and the devil is the side effects. It is brutal. So they had done a 3rd surgery on me, which was to put a portacath in. They knocked me out for this. And so you can see the scar I still have. And so there was a kind of this, how would I describe it? It was like a circle. I actually have it in my drawer. Maybe I should pull it out. But it was this circle, and it was sort of like a little launch pad that connected inside. It was inside my body, and the medicine would go through it. Let me find it now that I'm here and looking. I wasn't sure if I was going to save it. They gave it to me, and I took it home, and then I was I wasn't quite certain what to do, but then I thought, oh, I don't think I want to throw it out either. Of course, now I can't find it. Maybe I moved it somewhere else. And I don't see it often, and I don't take it out very often. So anyways, they gave me, so I had that first round of chemo. I went there. I knew I was getting the red devil. I had read up on some of the side effects. My doctor was really thorough actually in explaining to me what to expect. So going in, I knew that it was going to be quite a ride. And let me tell you, it was. The red devil is the perfect name for it. And when it was first coming in, oh, here it is. I knew I had it. When it was first coming in, I could see the red. I actually put this on my Instagram not too long ago. The red liquid coming down the tube and getting ready to enter my body. And the only other time I've had that sort of feeling of, you know, in the next few seconds, everything's gonna change, was when I was giving birth to my kids, especially my son, who's my second child. I had one last push, and I knew as soon as I did that, I was no longer going to be pregnant, and I was going to have this baby. And it was just one of those moments where a few seconds change your entire life. And that's how I felt about this chemo coming through. And so at the time, I tried cold capping. Now it was really hard. Let me just show you this quickly. So this was what was inside my chest. And the the big needle would go through this, and it was going in through, there's still some blood in it. Sorry, that's disgusting. But it basically is wired. I can't remember exactly how it's wired in, but that's the portacath. I still don't know what I'm gonna do with it. Maybe I should just get rid of it. I don't know. So anyways, I really wanted to save my hair because the thing is, I live in Dubai. I'm the beauty editor for Cosmopolitan magazine. And I, have this very public life. And Dubai, there's a lot of pressure to look good in Dubai, and I felt like, well, okay, and this is me not surrendering. This is me trying to bargain. And, if I go through the chemo and I have the surgeries and I follow the doctor's orders and I do this, and this right, just let me keep my hair. Just let me keep my hair. And I ended up doing this thing called penguin cold capping. There's different types of cold capping. I was told penguin is the best. The penguin representative said to me, like, look, Lauren, the type of chemo you're getting is the toughest type out there. It's a 50% chance it's going to work. So I said, well, okay, that means that there's a 50% chance it's going to work. I'm focused on the positive. So we did the cold capping, and it was negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the same as, negative 50 degrees Celsius. And they put this hat on your head. It's so tight. They wrap it and make it even tighter. It's freezing cold. And the whole thought process behind it is to freeze your, freeze the blood flow to your follicles so the chemo doesn't hit it and your hair won't fall out, because the chemo attacks the fast replicating cells, which is cancer cells. Unfortunately, our hair and our nails are also fast replicating cells, so that's why we lose our hair. So there I am, first chemo. Can't believe this is happening. My husband's by my side. He came to every single doctor's appointment, every single chemo appointment, every single radiation appointment, every single follow-up. He was there by my side for everything. And I was centering myself. I was trying to just, go with the flow, let this whole experience start to happen. And my head was freezing cold. I became freezing cold. I was peeing. My pee was bright. My urine was bright red. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be nuts. And the chemo started. That was February 22nd. Now, 3 weeks after my first round, in the course of 2 days, 48 hours, I ended up losing 80% of my hair. So the cold capping did not work, which you can see now because I have a short pixie cut. And I was devastated. I really wanted to save my hair, and I was very focused on it. I woke up one morning and it felt like someone had teased my hair, but like teased it down here. So it was almost just this big knot type rat's nest on the bottom. So I did what they said. I held my hair tightly, not tightly, but at the root so I wouldn't pull the root. And I started just to brush out the hair, because you can't have it holding, you can't leave it there, because then it's gonna weigh on the roots and that can cause breakage or the foliage. And I don't think foliage is a word, but you know what I mean. And so I did everything they said, and I mean, this gigantic clump of hair came out. And it was so shocking to see. It was so shocking. And I told the man who was doing my cold capping, and he's like, okay, he's like, just don't touch your hair anymore. Just don't mess around with it. And he said, you know, this is the make or break time. And I thought, okay. It just kept falling out. I mean, I did everything by the book, and like I said, 80% of my hair in 48, maybe it was 72 hours. And there's pictures all over my Instagram if you want to check it out. So I knew that the cold capping didn't work. And from the get-go, I told my kids about the cancer. I waited till after Christmas, because I found out 10 days before Christmas. I waited till after Christmas so they could have one last good Christmas. And I bought them everything on their Christmas list. And I decided to tell the kids separately. So when I told them, they would be able to just ask me whatever they needed and not be over talked by their sibling or, you know, spoken over or anything like that. And, you know, the kids took it hard. They took it really, really hard. And at the same time, I've always had a parenting style where the kids can ask me any question at any time, no judgments. I'm open about talking about anything and everything, and trust me, they do. And so the same went with the breast cancer. They could ask me anything at any time. They could tell me anything, and, you know, nothing was off the table. And I remember when I told my son, and my son is such like he's always in and out of the house. He has a million friends. He's always getting himself in trouble somewhere and, you know, hanging out with the guys or gaming or whatever. And he just stopped and he looked at me, and I was sitting on my bed and my husband was there, and he said, "Mom, I don't want to lose you." And it was honestly probably the most beautiful moment of my life, because it was so raw, and it was just it was his it was like his soul just coming through. It makes me teary just thinking about it, because he's very much like he's a 13-year-old boy, you know, and he's sensitive, but he's also out trash talking with his friends and playing soccer and baseball and all that kind of stuff too. And it was just such a profound moment in my life, something I'll never forget. So I had also decided from the get-go that I wasn't going to share my diagnosis on social media. So I do have, you know, not a huge social Instagram profile, but I have enough people following me on Instagram that if I started posting about what I was going through, I was going to get flooded with messages. And one of my girlfriends, she is a spiritual coach, I would say, out here. She's psychic. And she said to me, you know, don't put your diagnosis on Instagram or any of your social media. Keep it off until you finish your chemotherapy. And when she said that, I got goosebumps. So I just knew, like, I think of them as being soul chills. So I just knew that my intuition was saying, you know, she's absolutely right. So I just kept everything off. I kept it private. I kept it to myself. I'm not saying that everyone should do that. It was just what was right for me. And it was great because it cleared out a lot of noise. Because this is where I get to the gift of breast cancer. So prior to breast cancer, like I mentioned before in this video, I was really busy, and I kept myself really busy. And I had a lot going on. And then suddenly I just had all of this empty space, sort of this white space. And I had in my hand, you know, like a marker. And I realized it was time for me to do some really deep deep introspection. Breast cancer was giving me the gift of time, free time. And I started to. I spent a lot of time on my bed. I was so weak. I was so sick. I couldn't move much. And I started to really think to myself, who do I have in my life? Do I have the right people in my life? Is there anyone that needs to go? And there was. And I thought to myself, what are my boundaries? Where are my boundaries strong? Where are they weak? Do I know what boundaries even are? How can I improve my boundaries? And I started to just really do this, almost this life review, this analysis of who I am and what I am and who do I want to be? How do I want to grow? How do I want to evolve? And it was something that I would have never been able to do had I just continued going the way I was going on that hamster wheel, just grinding and grinding and grinding all day. And I ended up meeting myself on a much deeper level than I think I even knew was possible, to be 100% honest with you. I started to really think, who is Lauren? What do I like? What do I want my life to be like? What do I want my beauty brand launch to be like? What do I want my beauty brand to be like? And I'd already done a lot of work on this, but breast cancer was adding this new depth to it. I thought about the first product I was going to launch, which is a banger of a product, but I decided I was going to make that actually probably the third product I'm going to launch. And I created my first product while I was going through chemotherapy. I was still working with the labs. I went through about 50 iterations. And it's not something specifically for women with breast cancer, but I, made it while I was going through breast cancer, and it was great for during my treatment. And I'm actually very excited about it. As a beauty editor and beauty blogger, it's never come across my desk before, but it's something that every woman is going to love. It's going to rock the beauty world, and they're going to think to themselves, how did I live without this before? So anyways, all these things came to me while I was going through chemotherapy. I also started regular therapy, mental therapy, to just help me really start to grieve, or to help with my grieving through the breast cancer process, because you are saying goodbye to the life that you had and you're saying hello to a new life. It's actually the start of a beautiful new beginning, because as you're saying hello to that new life and you're having a door open up for you, you're designing that life. And when you go through breast cancer, you start to realize just how incredibly strong and resilient and powerful you are, and your body is, and your soul and your spirit is. And you're never going to say yes again to something you don't want to do. You're never going to do something that doesn't serve you. And, I started to really design and write out, what is this life that I'm going to be opening the door to post breast cancer treatment? And it was fun. I really enjoyed, the planning, the dreaming, the visualizing, everything. And I just knew that the Lauren that was there pre-breast cancer, she was wonderful. And the Lauren post-breast cancer treatments is going to be phenomenal. So I went through, another thing too that breast cancer gave me was the gift of tearing up. I'm a Scorpio, so I'm big on internalizing, and before I would always think to myself, I'm not a crier. Instead of be crying about something, I do something. That's just how I was. I'm a doer. And I realized just how cathartic it is to cry and to let the tears flow. And when you cry, you're releasing resistance. And now I tear up all the time. But anyways, So I finished up the chemotherapy. It was so hard. I had 4 rounds of the Red Devil, and then I had 12 rounds of another type of chemotherapy called paclitaxel. It's also we just called it Taxol here in Dubai, or that's what my doctor and I called it. And that one was also tough. The Red Devil was worse, but Taxol was no joke, and it put my body into menopause. So I was experiencing hot flashes and, oh my gosh, everything you can imagine. I was hopped up on steroids. My face was a moon face. I gained a ton of weight. I had acne everywhere that was just popping up towards the end. I did maintain my skincare routine throughout my breast cancer, and I will do some videos on my breast cancer chemotherapy skincare routines. But I was getting powerful drugs put into my body on a weekly basis, and it was hard. I lost my eyebrows, my lashes, all my hair was gone. And one day I was looking in the mirror, and I thought to myself, I literally don't think I could look any worse than I do right now. I had no hair anywhere. I had, this moon face. My cheeks were permanently red because from like a histamine reaction from the Taxol. I was covered in acne, and it was tough. It was tough looking at myself like that. Plus, I was completely bloated, and I had gained some serious weight. I gained about 30 pounds during my treatment. It was almost like a pregnancy without having that beautiful little baby at the end of the pregnancy. And, I looked at myself in the mirror, and I thought to myself, it's easy to love yourself when you feel like you look so beautiful, or not in a conceited way, but when you feel like you look great and you feel great. And it's so easy to love yourself. It's easy to see the beauty in you. And I said to myself, looking in the mirror right now, can I still see the beauty in me? And I looked, and I thought about it, and I saw that I could. I could still see it. And it was radiating through, and the light within me, I realized, could never be put out. And that was another profound moment, and just this beautiful gift that I received from breast cancer. And I realized that I can handle anything. I can handle anything. And I could, I knew that eventually my hair would come back. I was hoping I'd lose the weight. And, I wouldn't be on the steroids anymore. And I would start to regain my old look, maybe with a new normal. But that light that was there when I was at my absolute worst was never going to fade. It was always going to be there, and it's always been there. And there were a lot of times when I was growing up in my 20s and my 30s, I didn't even know the light was there. I never saw my beauty in or out. And it was actually at my absolute worst is when I saw it the most. So, I had a lot of these realizations, and these are things I would not have had I not gone through the challenge of breast cancer. On my 16th round of chemotherapy, which was my last round of Taxol, I decided I was going out with a bang. So I got permission from the nurses at the nursing station on the chemotherapy ward to have a party. And the way it was in Dubai is you actually would have your own big room, almost like the room you would give birth in, wherever you are in the world. But in Dubai, for your chemotherapy, you had a nice big size room with its own bathroom and everything as your hospital room to receive the medications, the treatments. So I invited about 16 of my friends. I had balloons, breast cancer balloons everywhere. I bought tons of those like topiary balloon things. I had Mardi Gras beads that were pink. I bought the It's a Girl party poppers that, so pink would come out. I made a playlist on Spotify. I had catering in. I had a cake made with pink punching bags and the date of my last chemo on it. I bought myself a dress off of Revolve. It was a size I've never bought for myself before because I had just gotten so large. But you know what? I didn't care. I bought that dress, this beautiful pink dress, and I decorated my IV pole. I had decorations all over the hospital room. And I had sparkling juice and lots of great stuff. My daughter and my son were there. My son and my husband, I bought them matching shirts that had these big pink flamingos on them. I don't know why I went for pink flamingos, but I did. So they wore these matching Hawaiian shirts. And my daughter was there, and she brought one of her friends whose mom I'm friends with, and we partied. My friends all saw me, and some of them had come throughout my treatments to just be with me during a round of chemo. But everyone saw me getting my last dose, and when the nurse pulled it out, everyone cheered. I had a photographer come. I went all out. And actually, my husband told me that at one point he had left the room. I don't know why, but he saw the man that was doing the cold capping, which hadn't worked out for me. And he saw him, and he said to the guy, he said, does everyone throw a party like this on their last day of chemo? And the guy said to him, only your wife. So it came time to ring the bell, and I had seen that bell. I'd walked by that bell many, many times, and I always visualized what it was going to feel like to ring it, and my day finally came. So we had the party poppers ready. Everyone had their phones out. I felt like a celebrity. The photographer is there. She took the most amazing photos. She really captured the emotions on that day. And I have lots of those pictures on my Instagram if you want to check them out. The nurses were there. Everyone's there to see me ring the bell. And of course, during chemo, when I was home all the time feeling sick and not doing much with myself, I watched a lot of Netflix. And one of the shows I watched and binged was called Selling Sunset. If you're not familiar with the show, it's basically these beautiful people that sell these insanely expensive houses. And whenever they get a sale, they have this gigantic bell that they ring like this. So I went up to the very modest and humble hospital bell, and I had my Selling Sunset moment, and I started ringing that thing when it was time. We did a countdown, I think, and I started ringing it. Everyone's cheering, everyone's popping the party poppers, there's pink confetti everywhere, and I rang that thing so hard, I broke the bell. It fell off the wall. And it was in my hand, and I remember my daughter just laughing, and everyone was laughing, people were crying, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I put it back up on the wall, and I just kept ringing it, and it was just such a joyous moment. And my girlfriend, the spiritual coach, was there, and she said to me, that was pretty powerful. She said, that means you are never coming back. She's like, that was your message to the universe. And I thought, you know what? She's right. So that was a great day. It was a great way to end the chemo. And I overheard one of my friends as we were kind of afterwards, after the party, she was talking to someone else, and she said, I think this is one of the best parties I've ever been to. So it was a great time. And then I went on to do 25 rounds of radiation. For me, the radiation actually wasn't too bad. Some women say the radiation for them is much worse than the chemo. Everyone is different. And ironically, you would think that with my incredibly fair skin, that the radiation would have wreaked havoc on me. I had barely any redness. By the end of it, the last maybe 2 rounds of the radiation, I had it every day for 5 weeks straight, Monday through Friday. On the maybe last 2 days, I was getting a bit pink. Now, I am in various, WhatsApp and Facebook groups and all this kind of stuff, and I see some of the pictures women post, and they have just very raw, oozing skin. They go through incredible pain and skin transformations, and I just did not experience any of that. The radiation was very easy for me. I did not get tired. I was still wiped out from the chemo, and still to this day. I finished chemo July 3rd, 2004. Today's March 5th, 2025, and I know I still have some lingering effects from it. I don't think the chemo's in my body anymore. My oncologist told me it would be gone by January, but it's a new normal for me. I'm living a new normal. So I got through the radiation, and then the doctor said, now it's time to wait. And we are going to wait, and then we're going to do a scan and see if there's any cancer left in your body. And I said, okay. So I tried to, take my mind off of everything. I didn't want to worry about the cancer coming back. I did a lot of meditations, a lot of visualizations of the cancer cells leaving my body. At that point, I would say I fully surrendered to the whole experience, and I really changed my life in so many different ways because of the cancer, and really did a lot of reprioritizing. And I announced that I had gone through breast cancer via Cosmo. I wanted to really have an impact in how I shared my news. And so I did it through Cosmopolitan. And the article, it traveled far and wide. And it was just about why I decided to keep it a secret and, my experience. And it's a great article. It's actually linked down below in the description box if you want to take a look at it. But I really poured my heart and soul into that writing, and I cried so many tears as I was writing it, and just feeling very grateful for the whole process and everything that the breast cancer had taught me. Truly, it was one of my, if not the greatest teacher I've ever had, was breast cancer. So I, spent the next 2 months starting to get my strength back. So now I'm talking, September, October. And in November, I had my PET scan and to see if the cancer was there or not. And I found out on November 20th, 2024, that I was clear. And that actually there was no more cancer left in my body, and I was cured. And as you can imagine, I felt so incredibly grateful. I felt grateful to my friends and family who supported me. I felt so grateful to my kids, my husband, my parents. I felt grateful to my medical team. So many wonderful people I had in my life. And first and foremost, though, I felt grateful to myself. For really just getting myself through the treatments, through the diagnosis, and for using it as a time to really explore and to discover a whole new universe of myself, a whole new me, and to do the inner work, to do therapy. I think I touched on that before, and then I maybe got sidetracked, but I realized therapy is it's a wonderful tool for self-development. I think there's still stigma around it, but my gosh, actually my therapist recently said to me, do you want to continue with the sessions? I think you're doing pretty good. And I said, are you kidding me? I want to be in therapy for the rest of my life. There's so much to break down and talk about, and it's such a wonderful tool. I really think everyone would benefit from therapy. Of course, I wouldn't push it on anyone, but it's an incredible thing. But I just felt so proud of myself. I did that. And it was it was not easy. It was not easy. And while I was going through breast cancer, I was told, and I did some research and found it to be true, the number of men that leave their wives, the number of husbands that leave or abandon their wives while they're going through breast cancer is quite high. And I remember reading a story about a woman, and she was going through breast cancer treatment. It was during COVID. Her husband was always going out to some bar and smoking in the house, and she had to wear a mask in the house. And just, I felt so grateful for my husband, who was there every step of the way. Actually, there was one chemo he missed, and it was because my son had contracted some, crazy virus. You know how it is. They pick up everything at school. And my husband, of course, caught it from my son. And it was the morning of a chemotherapy round. And my husband said to me, I woke up, I'm not feeling good, but I'm going to take you. And we'll just go. And when I come back, I'll just sleep for the rest of the day. And when you go through chemo, your immunity goes down to pretty much like a newborn baby's. You have no immunity. And they tell you, don't go out in public. Don't do anything you don't have to do, because if you get sick, you're going to get really sick, and it's going to delay your treatment. So you're just going to be in chemotherapy longer. And I didn't want that to happen. So I said to my husband, you need to just go stay in his bedroom, quarantine, stay away from me. I don't want to get sick. Don't come to chemo today. And he said, but I always come. And I said, well, today you're not. And he said, well, can I at least drive you there? And I said to him, his name's Aaron. I said, Aaron, it's the same thing. I'm going to be breathing in the same air. I said, you need to just stay, and you need to just not come near me for a week. And he said, a week? I said, yes. So he did miss one chemotherapy, but everything else, he was there. And, I felt like I was in a cocoon from the time that I stepped into that cocoon when I had my first surgery. And when I came out of my radiation, I stepped out of the cocoon, and I just had these beautiful, beautiful butterfly wings. And they had pink ribbons all over them. And, it just, to me, felt like it was time to fly into this whole new version of me that I had created while I was going through chemo. And just this empowered, resilient woman. And, it was honestly the greatest gift. It really was. So the breast cancer journey is far from over. I had had hormone positive breast cancer, which means that estrogen, which is responsible for keeping us so youthful and beautiful and our skin nice and elastic and everything, was my cancer's food. So I can't have any estrogen in my body. Right now I have the hormonal makeup of a 75-year-old woman. My joints are stiff. I still get hot flashes because I'm also having this postmenopausal thing going on. And there's a lot of changes that have happened in my body, but I am alive. I am healthy, and I can handle it. I can absolutely handle it. And if you're watching this and you have stage 4 breast cancer, just remember that although it's not curable, it is treatable. And there are so many women out there with stage 4 breast cancer that are thriving. They live very long, happy, healthy, fruitful lives and do everything they want to do. And for them, it's also a new beginning. So that's my breast cancer story. And my thing now is working on launching my beauty brand. It's going to launch most likely in September, October. I sent in the initial payment, the down payment for the product to be manufactured. I actually was so excited I accidentally wire transferred it to them twice. And so there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. When you walk into a Sephora and you just see all these beautiful products and boxes and everything is perfect, there's so much that goes on to get that there. with different manufacturers and suppliers and waiting times and emails and holidays and oh my gosh, everything. So I think it will be ready in June, but I don't want to launch my brand in the summertime because that's sort of a dead season. So I just feel intuitively that September, October is right. And even the theming of my brand, the name of my brand, it's never been done before. It's so unique. It's original. The product, oh, you're gonna love it. You are going to love it. It's gonna be available worldwide. You know, I'm focusing first and foremost on like US, UAE, GCC, UK, but it can be shipped to anywhere. And I'm so ready. I'm so ready. And the tears, but you know, one thing I realized when I was going through my treatments was I never needed to worry about any bills. I have amazing insurance and it covered everything. It really was, I had such a great experience, and I feel that every woman going through breast cancer should be able to get all the treatments they need, the care they need, the rest they need, everything they need without you know, having to worry about not being able to pay or going bankrupt or any of the other things, having to work, all of those things. So I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do it, but I know when my brand, my beauty brand, becomes profitable and I have income, extra money in it, my goal would be to have every woman in the world be able to get the treatments, the care, and everything they need and never have to worry about the payments. I don't know how I will start doing that. I'm going to start small, but I do want to, you know, pay it forward, all of the blessings that I've had, and at least help to take off the concern about affording treatments, and to take that off the minds of women going through breast cancer. So that is something that I plan on doing, and I know I'll have the right people come to me to help me execute that vision. And of course, I'll start small, paying probably for a few treatments because that's all we'll be able to afford. But you know, I have big plans, big goals. I have a lot of life in front of me, and I want to use it for good. So if you've made it this far in the video, I just want to say there is so much more to life after diagnosis. It's not the end. It's a beautiful new beginning.